I was the founding director of the Substitute Teaching Institute at Utah State University. We started the institute. We were doing a lot of permanent teacher training, and we realized we're pulling a lot of people out of the classroom to do permanent teacher training, these teachers that were in the classroom. And we said, what happens when what happens to the learning when the teachers are out of the classroom? And so we looked at what was happening with substitute teaching, and nothing was really happening in training and so forth. And so we applied to the U.S. Department of Education, got a federal grant, the largest ever grant awarded on the topic of substitute teaching. And for 3 years, we researched substitute teaching, which began our institute and began our commitment to research and finding and helping districts recruit, train, and retain substitute teachers. So that's my background. In 2008, we became a spin-off organization. The university approached us and said, you're a prime organization to go under license by the university. And so they asked us, and so we are under license by the university, still promoting the material that we developed while we were on campus, and continuing that legacy. And let's see if Kelly's on. Kelly?
I'm here. People are telling me they can hear me.
Help Kelly. All right. She might have got a phone call or something, but she'll pop in. Kelly's been with Steady for about 5 years or so. She can, oh, you can hear Kelly. Can I hear Kelly? You can, I just can't. Wonder how come. Wait. Oh, there we go. Kelly, now I think I can hear you.
Can you hear me now, Jeff?
Very good. All right.
Awesome.
Okay, now we're talking to somebody. We can hear. Thanks. I see that now on the chat. Awesome. Kelly, welcome.
Thank you.
You've probably been trying to talk, so.
Yes, everyone else has been hearing me, but I'm sorry that you couldn't before.
Yeah, I'm in my office, and Kelly's in hers. Kelly's is now in Florida. We have a Florida office, and she's in Florida, so it's good for us on the East Coast, and so I can't tell. So we're good. Glad that was my bad that I had my, I was just talking to myself, so this is good. All right, so let's begin. So Kelly is our district coordinator. She works with districts and organizations and helping them with their practices in training substitute teachers. She really is the go-to person to know what's going on, particularly as we learn from other districts and so forth. And so that's why we always say visit with Kelly with that. All right, today, let's talk for a few minutes about some of the challenges. And I know I'm talking to those, you face the challenges each and every day, but to quantify or qualify what we're going to talk about today, I just want to review a few of these. I know we hear from many of you regarding the teacher shortage, and this is permanent teachers, that colleges of education are not getting the number of student applicants and are graduating the number of applicants that they have in the past. And so teachers are becoming in shorter and shorter supply. And that's what that does is it does force those that are in districts and organizations to take out of their pool those that are certified and can teach permanently, that they can pull them out of their sub pool. And so it does put a big pressure on the sub pool and reducing the number of individuals in the sub pool. Historically, we've seen that about 1/3 of a pool tends to be certified and 2/3 tends to be non-certified. That's if a district who will allow non-certified individuals who don't have a teaching degree to be in their sub pool. And so we need to make sure that if they are pulled out, that we find a replacement for them in the pool for those who need to be available to substitute teach. More classroom management, complaints registered against substitute teachers, and I will talk a little bit about that in the next slide. Also, lower participation from the subpool. Many districts say that they do have the number of substitutes that they tend to have had in the past, but they're not working as often and as frequently. So see, these are some of the challenges and what we can do. We want to address what we can do to help mitigate these challenges. So we conduct what we call the Fill Rate Academy. At the bottom, you can see that this is a slide from the Fill Rate Academy for administrators. This is something that districts can participate in on an annual basis. It's a year-long program. In the past, we've had what we've called sub-solutions, and I know as I looked at some of those who've registered, some of our friends who've been at sub-solutions, and that's been a lot of fun. We decided to do it online, and so that we reduce the travel component of it, and we can do it, and that's part of the Fill Rate Academy. So monthly we meet and we talk about research that we're doing and surveys, and so the couple of slides I'm pulling from the Fill Rate Academy to share with you as we talk about what's happening. So, sorry. I have to do that so I can see the whole slide. All right, so in our recent survey of managing substitute teaching, 56% of the districts responding said that the lack of classroom control was the last complaint they had received relating to substitute teaching, followed by didn't follow the lesson plan and misconduct, each at 20%. Now, compare this to the results that we had in 2015, which was 45%, and 2010, which is 42%. So it's an increase, if you will, in the number of complaints registered against substitute teachers saying that they don't have, they lack classroom control. So that's concerning. We need to curb that and bring that back down. So more than half of the complaints registered are because they don't have classroom control. Also, our friends at Frontline have provided some data that was very fascinating that we talked about in the Academy. So number 3 shows the average fill rate over the last 3 years from 85 to 2018 completed. So it dropped from 85% to 82% is the average fill rate, and which is quite low and dropping. On item number 4, this is what I wanted to point out here today. Percentage of non-working substitutes. It went from 39% in 2015-16 to 49% in 17 and 18, which is very fascinating. So the people are in the pool, we just tend to, they're not working as often. As you can see in number 5, the average number of days they worked was 40 and it dropped down to 33. And so if we can increase the working of substitute teachers and reduce the non-working substitutes, we can really help with our fill rates. And so those are some of the things we've talked about. And we'll talk a little bit about that today, how we do that. So preparing for next fall, I know it's a little, but want to make sure you don't miss an opportunity of keeping the employees that you currently have. In recognition, we just finished this National Sub Week, which is National Substitute Teacher Appreciation Week. And so we want to make sure that encourage you to reach out to those in your pool now and show them how much you appreciate them. Letter of letting them know some of the statistics, what your fill rate is and how they've helped in addressing that, how they've helped in covering the classes when the permanent teacher needs to be out of the classroom. So just reach out and encourage those to stay and help again next year. I appreciate what you've done. And provide opportunities for growth. They are looking for ways to improve. They want to make sure they're doing a good job. They want to reduce any problems that they have. They don't want to face unruly students every day, and so the skills that they need to help with that would be beneficial. Today we're going to talk about finding new employees through training. That's why I highlighted it. So we're going to address that. We're also one of the suggestions we always give, and I'm just going to put it here, is to form a task force, subtask force. So if you haven't already in your district created a subtask force, and that task force or committee could be comprised of a substitute teacher, one who's been around and understands the issues of substitute teaching. A permanent teacher, somebody from your faculty in one of the schools, your administrators, somebody from the HR office, for example, school staff, so maybe a secretary that is quite interested in seeing from a school that isn't seeing, and they tend to have a good rapport with substitutes, and they'd have some good ideas on a committee. Don't forget staff development. Invite somebody from staff development to be on part of that committee, so they can see the issues and help with some of the concerns that come up when they take out all the permanent teachers out of all the math teachers and put them into a workshop, and what that does to substitute teaching. So a committee together, and you can address these things. One thing we do in the Fill Rate Academy is that everything we do, the research specifically, district-specific research. So when people participate, or a subcommittee from a district participates in our Fill Rate Academy, we will survey the substitutes, the permanent teachers, the faculty and staff and principals. With those, we will help the subcommittee come up with specific information for their district and things that they can do, kind of a to-do list, and things that they can address, and have some numbers and data that they can really address with their administrators, and come up with ways to reduce the impact of when teachers have to be out of the classroom. So that's in preparing for next fall. Now let's talk about what are effective recruiting. We have found over the years that these aren't necessarily as effective as district hopes. When lowering requirements, meaning if a district has, or organization has, we require teaching certificates, but now we're going to hire those that don't have a teaching degree, or if they require a college degree, we're going to say we'll only take those that have just 98 credit hours or something. And so we have found by lowering requirements, it hasn't really produced the number of applicants that they were expecting. Same with raising their pay. Okay, we're going to raise our daily pay by $5 a day and try to attract the number of substitutes. That hasn't really produced the applicants that they were expecting. So these two alone haven't been as effective as hoped. However, when we've worked with districts, and as we've seen, when either one of these have been effective, a training component happens to be part of that. And so if you're going to lower requirements, but require training, for example, or provide training to those applicants, that tends to be more successful. Same with raising pay. We're going to raise pays for those who completed training. And that's really kind of interesting, that training tends to be the most effective component of a successful recruiting program.
I've got a lot of districts lately that are kind of combining the raising the pay with the training. They're doing the incentive that if people will take the training and pay for it themselves, then they can give them a pay raise for, maybe $5 a day or $10 a day, whatever the district feels that they can do.
Very good. Yes, thanks. We've also found that districts that require training had a higher fill rate of up to 15%, which is huge. So by those that had that tended to have a much higher fill rate, which is interesting. So training, as I mentioned, is the most common trait of most successful recruiting programs. Now, attracting well-educated applicants, and this has been consistent in our research over the years since the early 2000s. The number one reason people want to work in the schools is they like working with students. They like the opportunity of touching lives to help students learn, to help them in life, and they want to work with students. And that's been very consistent. It's always been number one. Number two has always been they like working with the faculty and staff. They like the professional association, knowing that they're not teachers, they're not part of the faculty, but enjoying the association with them. And so that's important to know. And we can address these first two. We want to make sure that in working with students, that they're well trained so they know how to do that. and also that we make sure that our faculty and staff are welcoming and reach out to these people, and they can have a good experience, and they're getting rewarded for their number one and number two reasons they want to substitute teach. Now 3 and 4, these two tend to flop back and forth, so sometimes it's pay that's number 3, sometimes it's flexibility, and that's why it shows 3 and 4. They do like the flexibility of being able to pick and choose what days they work and what days they don't work, and then pay is nice. And so pay isn't the number one reason. We tend to think it's all about pay, but if we can address these other 3, flexibility, working with faculty and staff, and then working with students, that goes a long ways in attracting them. As Kelly mentioned, the training is a recruiting tool. I will pay for training. Now we surveyed these individual substitutes who don't have a teaching degree, 73.62%, so nearly 3/4 so 3 out of 4 substitutes don't mind paying for training, and if they're rewarded by employment or by a pay raise. And so that's significant. We often think that, if we require training, we will lose a lot of applicants. Well, 3 out of 4, 75% of them said, no, we are willing to pay for training. We expect, if we're hiring somebody in the office, we expect them to be able to type. And so that's not an undue burden or it is something we should be able to ask, is they can show that they can type, or if a bus driver, that they have a driver's license and so forth. And so expectations of training and high expectations is not a deterrent to those that we want to bring into the classroom. I'm also often curious, as districts lower their requirement to, say, just a high school diploma or very little college, what that does to those people who want to substitute teach in that district, but then say, well, I might have a master's degree, I might have even a higher education degree, but if you only require a high school diploma, everybody in my community knows that's all I have is a high school diploma. And so by setting higher expectations doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to weed out more. You tend to attract more. The community will step up, and when you put out we're looking for people to come in and work with our students, and this is what we require, they will step up and want to participate in that. And so by paying for training even prior to employment is something that they can look at it and say, oh, that's something I can do even before I have to commit. Is this something I want to do? And they can take a training and see that they will participate and how well they'll do it. Okay, any comments, Kelly? I'm just looking at the chat.
I think that's the biggest thing I hear from people is that they want the training, and so whether the district can provide it for them or not is usually not that much of an obstacle. If you can ask them to pay for it on their own, often they are going to do it. So, we see that in so many different districts, that, big districts in the inner cities, like in Atlanta, Fulton County Schools does that. So, you can't say that, nobody's going to pay for it, that, if you ask them to, they just won't, because we see it where people do. People pay for that training themselves. It's not something the district has to provide for them. They still pay for it. And then they've invested in themselves, which is a great thing.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I was just noticing what Jessica had put here in the chat, that over 14,000 substitute teachers nationally answered this question. So it's a pretty good representative of substitute teachers' attitudes towards training. Now, what does training mean? We often think that training means, okay, here's how to use the automated system, here's how to get paid, and don't touch the kids. Oh, good, we've trained our substitutes. So let's talk a little bit about this. As I mentioned, when we first started the Substitute Teaching Institute at Utah State University, we got a federal grant. And these are the things that we focused on. We looked at what districts were doing in training, and then we did a number of research of what really specific things that we need to train them in. And of course, number one is classroom management, is the ability to maintain classroom control and to have the students working. And so that's always number one. It's the number one concern of substitute teachers. It's the number one concern of the permanent teacher, that a substitute can be able to manage a class. Right next to it is teaching strategies. This is the ability to implement lesson plans left by the permanent teacher. And so there are those who are retired teachers who know these first two things and do very well in the classroom. Sometimes the teachers, retired teachers, that do come in to look at a lesson plan and say, oh, that's not necessarily something I want to implement. I have my own thing, and they go ahead and implement it. But if a substitute teacher has good teaching strategies, they can reduce classroom management by quite a bit because it engages the students. But then they have the ability to pick up any lesson plan and implement it, whether it's cooperative learning that they're talking about, or they know how to ask higher level questions. They know how to engage students because they've been taught that. And so these two will work hand in hand, classroom management and teaching strategies, to be able to help the individual really implement the lessons left by the permanent teacher. It's interesting, in England, we've done some work over there. Of course, they have their certified teachers and their substitute teachers. They call them supply teachers. They need to be certified. So supply teachers are certified just like the permanent teachers. The problem there is they get paid the same. And so teachers were leaving permanent positions and taking substitute positions because they were getting paid the same, but they didn't have to deal with parents and other things after or correct homework and different things like this. So then they instigated what they called was a cover supervisor. An individual that doesn't teach, they say you can't teach because that's something the permanent teacher does, but they can implement lesson plans. And they tend to be more like our substitute teachers here in the U.S., particularly those who are non-certified. But they are teaching if they're implementing a lesson plan. They're just doing what the permanent teacher wants them to do. And the worst teaching strategy is show the video. And so we want to make sure that when substitutes are trained, and in fact, that's probably the biggest feedback we get in a district that implements a training, that the substitutes now are implementing what they want them to do, and then permanent teachers need to leave more competent lesson plans, more rigorous lesson plans that to actually have some content to that. And so the learning can continue, which is a good thing, which is a really, really good thing. So classroom management and teaching strategies. Now, being prepared and professional, when we surveyed administrators what they expect from their substitutes, this was their number one concern, or this was a major concern, was that they knew how to show up, that they would show up on time, that they were dressed appropriately for the activities that they would be doing, and that they were acting as a professional. And so that's their complaints and the issues that they were having. They wanted to make sure. And so being taught that and trained that and what they expect is really important with that, to spend some time there. Also, students with special needs. With often that's one of the first areas that goes uncovered. And so we want to make sure that people are prepared to take that and aren't afraid to take assignments. And so by addressing and spending time and teaching them about the terminology, about what it means and how it is to work with either students who are in the regular classroom or if it's in a separate classroom, working with students with special needs. And then the appropriate use of fill-in activities. When we surveyed and worked with permanent teachers, we asked them who their favorite substitute was and why. It was Miss So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so because they had a resource kit or a bag of tricks, something they could implement at a moment's notice. Sometimes this permanent teacher gets sick overnight and they can't prepare a lesson plan. So their favorite substitute knew that they could walk in and implement things. Or that they could, if the lesson plan, they completed it and there was 5 minutes before the bell rings, what do? Well, they're ready for that and prepare for that. And so that's probably something that non-educators tend to not really be prepared for. And so by spending time and working with people and helping them put together their sub pack or their bag of tricks or their resource pack, then that goes a long ways to helping them. So these are the skills of a substitute teacher. And coming from a university, we're used to researching and then teaching principles and letting people then try to make decisions on that. And in classroom management, for example, it's based on the 4 principles of human behavior. But it also addresses the 5 skills based on those principles that a substitute needs to implement. And so when we teach classroom management, it's very, very specific to a substitute teacher and what they need to do. For example, skill number 1 is implementing having a learning activity on the board when the students come in. So the teacher's there early. They put an activity, a learning activity, an invitation to learn activity on the board. Then when the students come, they know immediately that this is an educator. They get to work. And that's a skill that someone can practice to work on and to have that ready. And so by just doing that one skill, we'd really reduce the problems related to substitute teaching if all substitutes would just do that one thing. But that's one of the 5 skills based on the 4 principles of human behavior. So these are research-based practices and very specific on what they do.
If I can interrupt, I was just going to say that it's so much more than just a list. I often see as I'm looking through different school district websites where their classroom management in their handbook is just a list. They've got the handbook posted online. They expect people to go and look at it and sign off at some point that they've done that, but it's just a list. Whereas when they're learning classroom management through the SubSkills training, they're going to actually be learning, what we're dealing with, what kind of behaviors, what are, what behaviors are worth paying attention to, and which ones maybe could be ignored so that we can continue with the teaching, or so it's just so much more than just a list. So that's really the nice thing. It's an actual explanation of the different skills and how they apply, and what really matters as far as and explains it, and it lets them practice it and put things into effect in their teaching. So I think it's just so much better than just a list.
Good. Thanks. Would you explain the next item, the district-specific information?
Oh, sure. We have a lot of districts that will ask me about this. They said, well, they say, what can we do about, having to get them to sign off on, the bloodborne pathogens or things that they might need to know about insurance or other safety-related things that they want the people that will be substitute teaching in their district to know. And so we realize that, the things that we're covering in our training are very general things to apply to any school district or organization throughout the country. But there are very important things that you would cover in your orientation that you might want to include in the online training. And so we can do that. We can, you can send us, maybe a video that you want them to watch and a page that you have them print off and sign. And we can add that material to, to a module that's specific to your district. So anybody that signs up and indicates your school district as the main, district that they work for, they will be given that module and be expected, to complete it as part of the training that they're doing. So, and they would bring to you that form showing you that they've done it and signed off. So we can work with you on anything that you would like to include. I can give you some examples of what some other districts are doing. And then, if you have any questions at all about that, I hope you will contact me, because that might be what determines whether you do or don't want to do this training, just because of the different specific things that you have to work for your district. But we're more than willing to work with you on that.
Good. The impact of training, that's important. I appreciate you talking about that, Kelly, because that's a big benefit to districts. So the impact of training, it increases the applications from those who do well in the classroom. We've found that it really does, it is an encouraging uh, training as far as people can say, oh, I can do that. I can start with a learning activity on the board. That's something I can do. And especially since we show them what kind of activities that they can put up there, and they can work on that, and they can practice these things. And so it does increase the applications from those who do well in the classroom. It also increases self-efficacy. One of our studies that we did was on self-efficacy, and that is one's perception of one's self, their ability to implement things. And the higher that self-efficacy, or the higher their belief in themselves, the better opportunity they have. They actually do better. There is a lot of research in correlating. So to really study, the effectiveness of a teacher, one could send an observer in the classroom and observe the interaction with the students and their response. But since that can't be done overall, we can study the self-efficacy, and that also shows a relationship between their effectiveness in the classroom. So it does increase the self-efficacy. Often when a training isn't implemented, people have what they don't know doesn't hurt them, and so they think that they're very competent as they go into the classroom, except for when they actually face reality. It really happens that they all of a sudden lose a lot of confidence. That's why a lot of districts are experiencing somebody walking in to the classroom, teach one day, maybe two, and never come back. They just have a terrible experience. And so that we want to make sure that they are well prepared. Even though people who've taken the training and before they go into the classroom, their self-efficacy drops. They see, oh, I'm expected to teach. And so they're a little concerned, more so than somebody who hasn't had training, because they don't know better, if you will. But the minute they walk in the classroom and they can start implementing some of the skills, their self-efficacy goes way up, and they tend to continue as opposed to dropping off after a day or two. It improves student achievement. For example, when we can get the students on task and keep them on task when the permanent teacher's out of the classroom, it does enable student achievement to go up. There isn't much in education where we can invest in the improvement of substitute teachers that will have more of an impact on student achievement than anywhere else investment in education. Of course, I'm biased because I think training is one of the most important things we can do. It reduces stress and turnover and burnout of substitute teachers, because they have tools to work with. They know better than put themselves in harm's way, and so by teaching them, we will help them overcome that. And it's a concern as far as going in the classroom. We want to make sure they do well with that. There are two types of opportunities for training. One is live and on-site. We're going to talk a little bit about the Substitute Teacher Handbook and how districts implement this. Also the online and on-demand SubSkills Online Training course. We are pleased to announce the 10th edition of the handbook. It just arrived in our office last week, and we're excited for this edition. Jessica has worked really, really hard on this. It still has the research-based skills. There's more applicable reflective questions for them to help internalize what the material is. Also, observation forms. We want to encourage people to go in the classroom and observe other teachers. But we want to make sure they're trained prior to that. If they don't know what they're looking for, they will have no idea what would work and what doesn't work. And so we've talked about this here in the 10th edition, and this has been our something that is so fun to train substitute. There isn't much that we do that is funner than to train substitute teachers in a group setting, and using this Substitute Teacher Handbook. It's very effective. It includes the handbook itself, also the online. We have fill-in activities that are actually double this size. So if we printed, it would be twice the size of the handbook it is. But those are online, and so when they register, they get the handbook. You can see on the front it says register at stadia.org/handbook. They can have access to the online activities. Also, They have access when they register. They get the Sub-Suggestions monthly e-newsletter and can participate in receiving that from Jessica. Did you have a comment, Kelly?
No, I know there's been a lot of interest in this new handbook, and I really like that it's a little different, that we've added more into it to give people a chance to make more observations and think about what they're learning as they're going through it. I think it's going to be a lot more helpful that way.
With training substitutes, we've been doing it for many, many years, and it really is one of the funnest things that we do. And we have a trainer's manual. This is the 10th edition sub-trainer manual, and there's no PowerPoint. We model exactly what we expect them to do. There's a learning activity on the board when the substitutes come in to the workshop, and they get it done immediately. They get working immediately. There's a lot of group participation, so they're teaching each other, they're role-playing, they're practicing, they're doing, and by the time they walk out, they've dog-eared almost everything out of the handbook, and so they've become very familiar with what's in the handbook, what they need to go back and study and learn, and it's really a fun, effective way. We just love on-site training. And we can work with your trainers. We don't have to come out and actually do it. We can work with them through the sub-trainer manual and walk through how it's done. It's written, the expertise of training is actually in the handbook itself, the substitute teacher handbook. The trainer's manual is what a substitute would do, not be the expert in the content, but have the strategies to be able to implement it. And so the instructor really is acting like a substitute and is doing things a substitute teacher would do. So it's really modeling exactly what we want them to do in the classroom. And so that's kind of fun. So,
and I like it that it's designed that it gives you different options, whether you've got, 4 hours to train your substitutes or 4 days to train your substitutes. It gives you, all of the different options for, filling that time and using it the most, wisely.
Very good. It also will have suggestions on, you can use these strategies in your orientation as well with your own district specific content, because the strategies can implement any content, if you will. Now the online training, the SubSkills Online Training course, this online course received a Telly Award, and that's, I'll tell you more. I can tell you later about that, but that's an award that's received. It's an effective training. It's 8 to 10 hours. It's very compact. This is a college level course that we've been able to put together, and we've been using and working and implementing and improving over the years. It includes, as I mentioned, 8 to 10 hours, depending on how long one needs to go through it. They can come and go as they need to. It includes a sub-assessment, which is a test, and they get of each section, and they get up to 4 tries. Our intent is for them to learn, not to weed them out, and to learn. And so, but one can't just purchase the course and then go take the assessment and pass it. They need to learn the material before they can pass it. So we do provide up to 4 times for them to take it. It provides a sub-diploma, so that's what they provide to give to the district to indicate what they've completed on the assessment, and we recommend an 85% passing score. A district can set whatever they would require, but we suggest an 85%. It also can, as Kelly mentioned, district-specific information, the policies and procedures, the safe schools material, district very specific, and again, only those who register for your district would see that. Now, once they pass the sub-assessment, they are invited to participate and to join an online community. So this is only for those who completed the SubSkills course and passed it. And there they can share what works and what didn't work for them. They can ask questions. They can post activities, fill in activities that they've used and share with others. And so it's just not a course and they walk away and they're done. It is ongoing. It is one thing that they can participate in this and continue learning from. Now, something we're implementing this year, and I'll talk about it in just a minute, is the additional classroom management audio. We want to reward districts who make the decision to require training, and we reward them by giving to their substitute teachers the 2-hour audio classroom management. This is one of the finest things that we have produced, this audio classroom management. It's exactly what's in the handbook and on the training course, but there's more examples. It's supportive material for them to really internalize what is taught in classroom management. And so we're providing it for those substitute teachers whose districts or organization require them to take the SubSkills course. Now, most importantly for substitutes, we guarantee that the price of the purchase price of the SubSkills course, that they get a job. If they apply and if they pass the background check and they don't get a job because of their incompetence, if you will, we'll refund the money. And so it is a sure win for a substitute teacher to know that they'll get a job by completing the SubSkills course, or else we'll refund their money with that. Now, to mention what I just said, so the bonus for substitute teachers for districts who sign up or requiring SubSkills training or the handbook training is a free classroom management audio for them. It's a download. They can put it on their phone. They can listen to it, and it's just remarkable. It's just really one of the a very good thing to supplement the training. And we've never offered this before, but we wanted to make sure that we're rewarding those districts who say, okay, we're going to make that commitment. Good, their substitutes can have more. If a substitute comes to the site and signs up, they won't get access to that. Your district has to be registered for that, but then they can get this 2-hour audio download for them. So the impact of training, let me review, just is increase the applications from those you want in the classroom. Often we fear that, oh, we're not getting enough. No, you'll get more of the people you want. You might get less overall, but you will get more of the people you want and that tend to want to work and stay in the classroom. Increases self-efficacy, it improves student achievement, it reduces the stress and turnover and burnout of substitute teachers. It is just fun to get feedback from substitutes. They send us letters and say, you know, I've been subbing for a number of years and I just have been babysitting. I took the training and I can't believe how much better my day goes. I'm actually teaching. I'm participating in their learning. I'm not so worried so much about what a student might do that will throw off the day. I know how to handle it. I know how to prepare the class even beforehand so those things don't come up. And so it's just fun to get that feedback. And it does.
Yeah, we've had, oh, excuse me, but we've had teachers, you know, we know that a lot of our substitute teachers are retired teachers now, right? And we've had some of those, you know, that have been teaching for 30, 40 years that took our training and contacted us and have told us that they wish they'd known everything that we were teaching them. They wish they'd known that, you know, 20 or 30 or 40 years ago when they, you know, first started teaching. And they're so glad to find it out now because, you know, these are things that they never knew. Even through all those years of experience, they still realize that there were things that we were teaching them that they did not know, and different methods and things to try with the students. And they were very happy. Even this much later, they were still happy to hear these lessons and learn these skills.
It's kind of like taking what one would learn in a 4-year college degree, the most crucial components of that, and putting them in a course. Now, we're not saying that this is equivalent to a 4-year course, but it sure puts them in a much better position to learn those basic skills and strategies that they can implement immediately walking in the classroom. And that's the fun part, like Kelly said. So how do we begin? Well, email Kelly to register your district and also to get a sample copy of the 10th edition. We want to make sure you see the 10th edition, you know, as well as the sub-trainer manual. So reach out to Kelly to get that. We'd love to send that to you. Also, on our website at steady.org/wording is suggested what districts do. Now, we can show you examples of what was out there, but you can see what the wording would be specifically that you could put immediately on your website. And now is a perfect time. You know, July 1st starts a new recruiting year, and by requiring training right up front, you can see through July, August, September, and October when your fill rate's the highest, and you can really give it a chance to see what kind of applicants you get, and to see the response you get from those who don't have a teaching degree and who are required to take a training, and really the effect that it has. You'll see that they just don't teach once and walk away. You'll actually, when they come into your orientation, that they will be excited. They know what they're getting into and they'll want to participate. And they'll also get the classroom management audio. So start there at the steady.org/forwarding, what you can put on your website. Make sure you register, because we have to set your district up so they take advantage of that. So we want to make sure you get that. And again, Kelly's contact information is here. You can give her a call. We have recorded this webinar. We'll send it out with the slides as well. And but we're excited to work with you. We think this can be a very effective recruiting, this fall recruiting session and training session, and to get your fill rate up and to help you with this fall. We appreciate your attendance here today and your comments and questions, and I think many of those have been answered on the chat. So with that, if you have any more questions, just give Kelly a call, and we'd be glad to help you with that. Thank you for your participation, and we hope you have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks. Hope to hear from you.